Hello, everyone. This is Rick, and welcome to Astral Club. This episode is Astral Spirit Guides. Before we get started, I just want to mention Patreon. If you'd like to support the work here of Astral Club, spreading the knowledge of astral projection, you can do so. If you join Patreon, you'll get no commercial advanced videos on Sunday and an email where we can talk back and forth and just discuss astral projection, or you can tell me about your experiences or any questions you have. If you're interested, there'll be a link in the description. Next, if you're interested in a private lesson with me to learn astral projection or to improve your current projections, I'll be glad to work with you. There will be an email in the description, and I'll send you some more information. Okay, let's get started. Whenever I talk about my experience in Astral Guide School or with my guiding angel, there's always a lot of questions. There's always a lot of interest. And I'm constantly on the lookout for a variety of books associated with astral projection. I mean, obviously I have a lot and I've read quite a bit, but I'm always finding works that I had somehow missed previously. And I found one particular one. It's called Journey of Souls by Michael Newton, PhD. I guess he did hypnosis, past life regressions for about 29 years. And this book was published in 1996. I think a lot of people know what a past life regression is, but if you're a little unsure, essentially you undergo hypnosis. Now, it's well established that hypnosis allows for a deeper level of concentration. And quite often people are able to access memories from when they were younger that aren't ordinarily easily available to their normal waking self. Now, the conceit with past life regression is, well, if we can go back years in a person's lifetime, this lifetime, and there is such a thing as reincarnation, then would it be possible to regress someone to before this lifetime and then try to get some information from their access to past lives? Because if you think about it, there's a belief that all time is happening right now, just at different wavelengths. So perhaps it would be possible to somehow access memories, or even access on some level a life that you're experiencing in another time. I know it can kind of fry the circuits a little bit, but anyway, I had past life regression with Dr. Bruce Goldberg in the late 80s. And it was quite an interesting experience. I think I spent about 3 hours in his office, and he hypnotized me and took me back to a variety of past lives. So I found it a fascinating experience. Now, this particular individual did the same thing pretty much, I think, that Dr. Goldberg did, which is do past life regressions. And he evidently gained a lot of interesting information on a variety of subjects. When I was perusing the book, I noticed that he had a section on astral guides. And I read through it, and I found that to a very large extent, I was in agreement with what he had reported his subjects as saying. And there may be a couple of things that I hadn't experienced that I found very compelling. So what I'd like here is just to sample. I'm sampling and commenting on just a small portion of this of his work, Journey of Souls. Now he says the concept of personalized spiritual beings goes far back into antiquity. Anthropological studies at the sites of prehistoric people suggest their totemic symbols evoked individual protection. So they found these variety of charms, even in the very earliest of settlements And their belief is that they were some sort of protective amulet, some sort of protective charm that was used to protect the family or an individual. But then later, about 5,000 years ago, when city-states started arising, official deities began to be identified, both with the city itself and then individual families. I know from my studies in ancient Rome that every Roman household had its own deity that was to protect that family. And quite often, that deity was passed down over hundreds of years, protecting one particular family. So even in ancient times, there was this idea that there was some sort of unseen forces that could protect you against all the uncertainties and tragedies of the world. He states two examples in the United States of peoples with beliefs in protecting spirits. The Aumakua is a personal god to the Hawaiians. The Polynesians believe one's ancestors can assume a personal god relationship to living family members. They can come in visions and dreams, and Aumakua can either assist or reprimand an individual. In northeastern U.S., there is the Iroquois' Orenda spirit. This guardian is able to resist the powers of harm and evil directed at an individual. I mean, the concept of soul watchers who function as guides is really part of a belief system of many native cultures. The Zuni in the southwest of the U.S. have oral traditions in their mythology of godlike beings with personal existences. They are called the makers and holders of life paths and are considered the caretakers of souls. So this whole idea of a protecting entity goes back really as far as we can trace mankind's knowledge, history, myths. So this is a very common belief from the very beginning of mankind. Now, he says here that he is often asked if teacher guides are matched to us or just picked at random. He said that the guides do appear to be assigned to us in the spirit world in an orderly fashion. He's come to believe that their individual teaching styles and management techniques support and beautifully integrate with our permanent soul identity. I can tell you that my guiding angel, I feel very comfortable with him. I don't usually share that with him because, like I said, I like to to be a little bit of a challenge for him to manage every now and again. But it's but I feel very comfortable with him. So I believe that there probably is some sort of way of making sure that similar personalities can work together. That really just makes sense. He then says that he's heard about younger guides whose past lives included overcoming particularly difficult negative traits and then being assigned to souls with the same behavior patterns. It seems these empathetic guides are graded on how well they do in their assignments to affect positive change. Well, it's quite common in, for instance, drug treatment centers that you have people who are there as instructors who had previously abused drugs and then overcame their addiction. I think it just makes sense there as well, because if you have someone who is counseling you on how to break a particular addiction, they should have gone through it themselves, such that they know what you're going through. You don't want to hear from someone who's never so much as had a beer to sit there and counsel you on the struggles of alcohol when they would have no idea what they were talking about. He goes on to say that these empathetic guides are, as I said, are graded on how well they do to affect change. All guides have compassion for their students, but their teaching approaches vary, and I can testify to that. I find some guides constantly helping their students on Earth. In other words, they're very much involved in the process of guiding their assigned souls, while others demand their charges work out lessons with little overt encouragement. I think I remember we talked about the two different schools of guides that currently exist. And I belong to the one where we try to assist the soul as much as possible, whereas the other school, which is much more hands off. It seems like he is saying pretty much the exact same thing here. So that's interesting, very interesting. As far as gender assignments, whether we want to be, whether the guides choose a male or a female look, he said he found no consistent correlation of male or female subjects to masculine or feminine appearing guides. On the whole, people accept the gender portrayed by their guide as quite natural. And I can testify to that as well. It really is beside the point what appearance they're showing you. I mean, understand the appearance your guide is showing you or an angel is showing you is not their true appearance. It is an appearance that is carefully stage managed, if you want to use that term, to make you comfortable with them. So, it's that type of thing is very plastic. And once you are aware of what's going on in the astral, you realize that the outside image that seems so important to us here in the physical is really quite malleable and is very unimportant and is easily changed to fit whatever circumstance that you find yourself in. Or if you're trying to help a particular student, you take on a form, after a light telepathic scan to find out what will most work with them, what image will they find the most comfortable, and then you go with that. He then talks about a particular case, a subject he called Case 17. And they were talking about guides once again. So the doctor asks, I'm curious about teacher assignments in the spirit world in relation to their abilities to help underdeveloped souls. When souls progress as guides, are they given quite a few souls to work with? And then the answer is only the more practiced ones. I can testify to that because in the experience that I had, I just really had that one soul to work with. Now, of course, I was handicapped in that not only was I new to the guide process, but I still had a physical body that I had to manage. So I needed a lighter workload. But once you get experience, you can handle larger groups. And it doesn't really matter the amount of souls you're dealing with, because remember, you're dealing with you have as much time as you need. I know that seems like an alien concept here in the physical, but in the astral, you have as much as you need. You have the eternal now. Time is not something that is a rare commodity. You have all you need. It's only an illusion here in the physical that time is a rare commodity that you have to constantly watch over. Anyway, the doctor goes on. He says, since guides seem to have different approaches to teaching, what do they all have in common? The answer is they wouldn't be teachers if they didn't have love of training and a desire to help us join them. And I can say I would agree with that 100%. And, you wouldn't get involved in that job unless you really wanted to help others and to help guide them. That's the only reason you would do it. There's really no other benefits. Anyway, he goes on and he asks, then define for me why souls are selected as guides. Take a typical guide and tell me what qualities that advanced soul possesses. They must be compassionate without being too easy on you. They aren't judgmental. You don't have to do things their way. They don't restrain by imposing their values on you. I agree there as well. Sometimes you can come close to a line, but at the end of the day, you can only try to share the facts and try to convince a soul that this particular course that you're recommending that they go along with is going to be to their best interests. Uh, and it can be a difficult situation. There's no doubt about it. There can be a lot of reluctance, and I mean, let's face it. Look at yourself. You know, do you always make decisions that are really in your best long-term interests? I know I don't always make the right kind of decisions that way. I'll look at something short term and just try to take the easier way out. But sometimes you need someone to advise you who doesn't have any other agenda. They're there just to help you. So the doctor asks again. I said, those are things guides don't do. If they don't overdirect souls, what are the important things they do as you see it? And the answer was they build morale in their sections and instill confidence. And we all know they have been through a lot themselves, and they are accepted as individuals with the right. In other words, they allow everyone, the understanding that we have the right to make our own mistakes. I know as a parent, one of the most difficult things, because really, what are parents but guides? And if they're not, they should be. But, that was one of the hardest things that I had to do as a father was sometime allow my daughter to do an action that I knew was going to be a mistake. Now, obviously, it wasn't something that was going to injure her. But I think part of the process of becoming an adult is accepting responsibility for planning, for making the best decisions possible, and then taking responsibility if things don't go quite as planned. The doctor said, well, he has found that souls were very loyal to their guides. And the answer was, that's because they never give up on you. And I can certainly agree with that sentiment as well. That was the book, a little section I picked out, Journey of Souls. And once again, it was by Michael Newton. That's Newton, PhD. And this is Rick, and I will see you on the astral plane.